Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I'd like to follow up on my guide to buying used knives with a guide to selling used knives. And first and foremost, I just want to make clear, I'm not talking to the people who want to do, a business out of this. That's a whole different bag of, well, I don't know what it's a bag of, but I don't want anything in it. But this is just random people who are in the hobby and want to unload some of what they got. And I'm talking about places, rather than like eBay, I'm talking about places where there's kind of a selling community. So places like on Reddit, there's Knife Swap. On Blade Forums, well, there's Blade Forums. There's the USN, Usual Suspects Network. They got themselves a whole different culture over there, but they've got us trading forums. But you have to pay money there. And then there's also Instagram, but you got to be careful with Instagram because there's no good reputation system going on there. But anyways, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about here today. And yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the things you got to look out for and the things you should always be doing when you're selling used knives on the private market here. Okay, so let's say you've got something like your ZT-0808 here, which is a nice knife. There's not too much wrong with it, and it works fine, but it's just not for me. It's not something I want to keep around in my collection. What do I need to do? Well, first you figure out where you want to sell it, and then you start taking some steps. And the very first of those steps is to price check yourself before you price wreck yourself, because it's very easy to misprice a knife. Very first thing to keep in mind, though, is that retail price is out of... There's no way in hell you're getting retail back out of it. If you bought it for $200 and Blade HQ shipped it to you, it's now worth $180 in this particular case. Nobody is going to pay retail price for a knife that somebody else has owned. They're not going to deal... Think of it this way. Nobody's going to risk dealing with some random jackass on the internet when you could just as easily buy it off of a reputable company. It just ain't gonna happen. So give up on that. So go around and look at all of the threads in which you've seen somebody selling a ZT-0808. And figure out, okay, what are the prices here? You can buy one in crappy condition for $150. You can buy one in great, perfect, new in box condition for $180. So, mine's got a couple of little condition issues, so it's probably gonna be around the $160. Okay, great. But that's realistic. You will probably end up, and you got to remember, you got to be realistic about your price, because you're probably going to take a loss on every knife that you buy and then sell again. Because think about it. You paid a fair price for it. You used it a little bit, put a little more wear on it, and then you're shipping it back out. So you're losing $6 to shipping. And so, you got to be okay with that. And it doesn't matter how much you paid. Again, if somehow you managed to get $400 into your ZT-0808, I mean, good for you, but oh boy. That sucks, but you're never getting it back out. And you gotta be realistic so you don't end up in that purgatory of unsold knives. On some forums, you will get somebody who, and a lot of them have rules against this, but who will bump their thread to the top every morning, and they're trying to sell a ZT-0808 for $350, and every morning, like, oh, bump to the top, maybe today's my day. It's like, no, jackass, it's not your day, because you're selling a $200 knife for $350. I'm sure there's a great sob story there, but no one's buying. I'm sorry. Don't be that sad human. That's just sad. Don't be that. So, price check yourself. Figure out what they're actually selling for and be realistic about your price. Don't lie to yourself, please. If you find yourself deeper into a knife than you really want to be, one option that you've got is to trade. And trading is just where two people coordinate on these same forums and say, you know what, I got an 0808 and you got an 0452 CF. Come on, ZT, just use words. But anyways, and I'm willing to give you this for that, and then you mail them across and it works. And often you can preserve your value better that way, because he's in at 200 retail, you're in at 200 retail, and, nobody has to talk about the fact that these knives are only worth about $170. You both feel happy, you both get a new knife, everybody's good. So trading can preserve value even when you can't necessarily get cash out of the knife. That's another thing to consider, but trading's got its own risks, and we'll talk about them a little ways down the road here. But you gotta be honest with your buyers. This is a big, big deal. And I mean this in a bunch of ways, but your reputation is usually all you got. If you go on Blade Forums and you immediately screw somebody, you don't report an issue, and you're a dick to people, the word's gonna get around and no one's gonna trade with you. It just happens that way, and, you gotta be good to people. And frankly, karma. You're gonna be buying someday. You don't want to get screwed any more than you want to screw them. So that's something to keep in mind. And by honesty, I mean two main things. First, to over-report condition issues. So don't make up problems with the knife, but this knife here, it's got some issues. You can probably see that the backspacer here is all kind of scratched up. And it was like that when I got it. And another issue on this one is that the bearings inside there, one of the balls within the bearing, little captive bearing unit, is missing. I noticed that when I took that apart, it was just there. And, the seller who sold this to me didn't tell me that. And that's kind of crappy of him. And so you got to make sure that you report these things. And the reason for that is that that's the only real defense you've got. And another good thing to do is to take really excellent pictures. And to take a great picture, you go outside is a good rule of thumb. You set the knife down someplace and you take your pictures there. And you take pictures with the blade out, with the blade in, of the centering, of the back. Anytime there's an issue, you take a picture of this backspacer. So they see that coming. And because if somebody then comes back and says, well, I didn't realize that this was... then all you really got to do is say, hey, look, I described it in the text of the ad that there was this issue with the backspacer. I took pictures that show that issue with the backspacer. You still agreed to buy it. I don't know what you want me to do here. I mean, some people are willing to take refunds. Some people are not. That's really your call. But you're in the right if you've disclosed everything ahead of time. Yeah, you might lose a couple of buyers who are perfectionists who might have bought the knife if you didn't report the issue, but you didn't want those people anyways because they would have gotten the knife and been angry with you. It's always easier to wait and sell to somebody who's, the right buyer than it is to sell to somebody under false pretenses and take a major reputation hit. That's no good. Another good way to keep yourself safe is to choose your buyers carefully. And there are a bunch of ways you can do this. You could always check want to buy ads first. People will just put a post on a forum saying, hey, I'm looking for a ZT0808. And in that case, that's great, because you can just message them and say, hey, I got a ZT0808. And it's in this condition. Here are some pictures. This is my price. And in the best case scenario, they say, okay, sure, sold. And you ship it off to them. And you've just saved a whole bunch of time, money. And chances are somebody who's explicitly after one particular knife, especially one that's not in huge demand, is not trying to scam on you. That's a nice thing. But also, don't be afraid to use reputational systems, whether that be looking on like Blade forums. You've got like a number of successful trades and feedback where you can look to see, okay, this person's done 16 good deals in the last month. They're probably going to be just fine. Or on Reddit, you can, look at the mods and they'll put little flair on things that say, oh, this person's okay. You can also look to see if somebody's a paid member of the site. On some place like Blade forums, I'm more likely to deal with a paid member just because they're likely to, they're not going to just disappear after they don't send me a knife. They're not going to screw me in that particular way. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. Don't be afraid, and this is another important thing, do not be afraid to fire a bad buyer. If somebody's jerking you around for some reason, if they keep changing the deal, and we'll talk about reasons or issues down there, but basically, don't be afraid to tell somebody, you know what, I don't think we've got a deal here, sorry. You owe them nothing. And if they're already jerking you around and they haven't even paid you yet, they're going to make your life hell. So just don't do it. Feel free to fire your buyers. You want to adapt your methods to your transaction. This is an important thing because it's a very different thing to sell a $30 cold steel Tough Light than it is to sell an $800 custom knife from John Graham or something like that. If somebody is, if you're about to do a huge, big bucks transaction, pardon me, pay all the more attention to reputation. Don't be ashamed to ask them, hey, can you give me the name of somebody you've worked with before on a big transaction? And so you can run that down. Similarly, your shipping methods. You might go from, for your Tough Light, you might, ship bargain basement. No tracking, no signature confirmation, no insurance, although this covers insurance. Versus if you're sending a custom, by God, you had better get signature confirmation so that they can't screw you there. Insure the heck out of it. Take all of those steps. You might accept cash face-to-face when you would never want to accept cash. Or you take a check from a friend, but you'd never take a check from a random jackass on Blade forums. Always think about what level of security and what methods you need to be using for this particular transaction, because every single one of them is different. Then finally, and I said this in the buy-in video, but you should only make a deal that you can afford to have go right down the crapper. You have to sell in such a way that you're going to be okay if it doesn't go through. If they just steal your knife outright, if they do a PayPal refund thing and you lose the dispute for some stupid reason, you cannot afford to do deals that you cannot afford to have go south. So if you're in a situation where you're trying to unload a knife and that knife is your rent, then you're gonna want to deal with a friend only or something, You just need to make very, very sure that the deals you're making are ones that you can have go south, because it's heartbreaking to see somebody whose rent money is tied up in a knife that's lost in the mail. That's a big, big deal. So always keep that in mind. If you're making deals you can lose, you're going to have a hell of a better time of life. So those are the things you should always be doing when you're selling. Now let's talk about some things you need to watch out for. First thing you got to look out for are stripped screws. Because it's very easy as a buyer, particularly if you buy something, handle it a little tiny bit, and decide it's not for you, to not notice that a screw is stripped out. And then at that point, you sell it off to somebody and they get stripped screws, which is a big problem for warranty issues, disassembly, cleaning. Big problem. So this is a part of being honest with your buyers. You need to make sure that you're checking all of those things, and stripped screws are an easy thing even for good sellers to match. Next thing you got to be careful for are your recreational lowballers. And these are people living sad little lives who, the moment that you post an ad, even at a fair price, let's say you post it for $160, they'll send you a message on, your blade forms like, hey, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $100 for that knife and I'll pay you PayPal right now. And you know that, they're sending this out to every single person who posts anything, and with the hopes that one of them will bite. The thing is, they happen, they're jerks, don't do that. But if you've price checked yourself and you know that you're being realistic about your price, you don't need to worry about these people. They're just trying to con you over. Or more specifically, they're trying to get a good deal at your expense. And for somebody who needs money right now, maybe they'll do that. But nonetheless, if you know that your price is fair, then you can respond something like, okay, how about 155? And, give it a shot, or better still, just ignore them because they're being jerks, and leave them back to their sad little lives. So don't let those people screw with you. It's kind of a mind game, and especially if this is your very first sale and somebody says, and they can be pretty insistent, well, I've been seeing these going for $100 on some of these other forms. And, you don't even let them screw with you. If you know your price is good, your price is good. Problem solved, case closed. Go away, lowballer. Moving on, not that I'm bitter. Wait, can you tell that I'm bitter? Yeah, maybe I'm bitter. So, another thing to watch out for are non-standard payment offers. PayPal is really well known. A lot of people are willing to take USPS money order. In person, cash is still king. But if people start doing things like, well, you need to go to Walmart first to pick up a money order from Western Union, and then you take it to my credit union, and at that point, just cut them off and say, no thanks, we're good. Because every time that you move away from something that you know works, like your PayPal, like your freaking cash in person, it's the probability of something sketchy going on is worse. They put you out of your normal comfort zone, and they can screw you somehow or another. There are no ends to scamming, and a lot of them involve payment. So just stop before you even think about going that route. There are so many good options that if somebody wants a bad option, it's probably sketchy. Speaking of which, you want to be careful of just sketchy, flighty, or irrational buyers in general. So a sketchy buyer is somebody who's just ringing alarm bells, like, oh, well, great, are you willing to ship this to Nigeria? I got no problem with Nigeria as a country, but at the same time, chances are if somebody wants an expensive custom knife shipped there, there's something a little strange going on here. You can do international deals, and they're not all sketchy, but a good international buyer will usually make it clear why they are not sketchy, and will make things work. But you can also get sketchy for other reasons. You can get the non-standard payment sketchy. You can get other things. Basically, if it's tripping your gut and you're thinking, oh, this ain't quite right, don't do it. Fire the buyer, move on. Flighty buyers are the people who keep changing the deal. They say, okay, I'll take it at $160. Then 20 minutes later, you know what, I've been doing some more research, and we're looking at usually $140 for these guys. Will you do $140? Well, you already made a deal. No, I'm not going to do it. Well, okay, but I'll throw in a delegate. At that point, they're already making your life heck. Go ahead and get rid of them. That's just fine. Let them deal with somebody else. And then finally, you got to watch out for irrational buyers. If they're trying to make a deal with you that's just way too damn good, you're going to have yourself a problem. For instance, if you're selling a custom knife and, you expect to get about $700 for it and somebody offers you $1,500, you may want to give that one overnight. Because chances are that person's going to email you in the morning once they've sobered up and say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I just made that offer last night and I was drunk as a skunk. Can we renegotiate this? Very few people are willing to honor their drunk selves' offers. That's unpleasant. So you got to be careful when the deal is just too good. If somebody's making an offer that just doesn't make any sense to you as to why they would want that, I mean, some people, money just isn't an object. But at the same time, be careful, because often those people are going to come back on the deal later and be just a pain in the neck. Also, another sketchy behavior is the suggestion to cut corners. So if somebody says very explicitly, oh, don't insure the package, though, that'll just, enrage my landlord, or they'll give some stupid reason for that. That usually means that they're planning to lose the package and then try and blame you because the shipment went away. Or, oh, don't do signature confirmation because, I... blah, 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 blah. They'll give you 50 reasons, but again, that usually means they're trying to do the dirt, and that's a problem. So you gotta be careful if they start suggesting things that don't make sense, except potentially to screw you. You gotta be careful when you're making trades, because trades have themselves a unique set of risks. First and foremost, if you're just doing a straight trade, like somebody says, okay, I will give you my ZT0452CF for your ZT0808. Great. But you actually don't know that they're going to do that. All that happens in a trade is that two people on the same day agree to send the packages and they cross in the mail. And all that you really know is that they've sent the package, particularly if they send you tracking numbers. That's great, but they could have just sent you a brick or an empty box. So it's always possible, and they can screw you in a unique way in a trade, because you don't even know you've been screwed until after their knife has been delivered. And so this is a very, very clear case of choosing your buyers carefully. You don't want to make trades with people, especially on expensive items, that are new to the community. That tends to be a problem, because, like I said, it's very, very easy to screw somebody over in a trade. And so you need to keep a good choice of your buyers. That's important. You also lose all of your buyer protection. So with PayPal, if you buy something off of somebody or if you sell something to somebody, usually there's some protection to either side. Same thing with insurance, but here you lose that. So you need to be very, very sure. You can do plus cash trades. So for instance, if somebody's got, a Delica and they want your ZT, what you might say is, okay, sure, I'll take your Delica and $50 PayPal for your ZT. Which is, perfectly reasonable, maybe a little on the low end, but whatever. So they PayPal you some money, and then you both send out your knives, they cross in transit, and it works. Those can be very good because it actually shows you that the buyer is honest. I mean, they're going to give you PayPal money, which means you're getting something at the very least. And it also helps you to make deals. And I've done a lot of trades where I will send somebody a lower value knife and cash and get something a little higher in return. Again, it's a good way to get retail out of knives. But, you just got to be careful because the same provisos apply. And if somebody wants to trade you an expensive custom knife plus $800 in cash for your Delica, you're probably about to get screwed unless they're really well reputed and they got a good story for it. And also be cautious about multiple trades or many-to-one trades where somebody says, okay, I like your ZT. I'm going to give you a Delica. I'm going to give you a Kershaw Cryo. I'm going to give you a bird knife, and I'm going to give you a tough light. And all of those things together should equal a ZT. And actually, all of these things together do not equal a ZT. But nonetheless, you get what I'm saying here. When they offer to send you a bunch of different knives, that can be well and good if you want a bunch of different knives. But the thing is, you're not getting the same value out of it. Because in order to sell any of those individual knives, you're going to need to ship those knives. And so you lose value pretty quickly. And so that's another thing you got to keep in mind there. Finally, be on the lookout for deals that are just too good. This is the same thing as I said, in the buying video. If somebody's trying to make you an offer and you're thinking, wow, that's just really, really great for me, what's this person getting out of it? You might not know what's going on. And especially if you feel like, wow, I'm really getting the upper hand here. I mean, a great quote. The surest way to be deceived is to think oneself more clever than other people. That's Francois de la Rochefoucauld. And basically, all it's saying is that if you feel like the other person's getting screwed, you're probably the one getting screwed here. And then finally, from my personal experience, one very, very important tip. Do not sell your freaking Sleesh Bowie. I sold my freaking Sleesh Bowie. I love this knife, and then I had to buy it again. So if you're in love with your Sleesh Bowie, do not sell your freaking Sleesh Bowie. That's a very Nick-specific tip, but hopefully it's helpful. So anyways, this is my advice on how to sell knives used online. Again, a lot of it's going to be pretty familiar to people, but hopefully it's useful to somebody who's new to the game. And do not, for the love of all things holy, sell your Sleesh Buoy if you're in love with it. Thank you very much. Hope this has been helpful, and have yourself a wonderful rest of your day.